All right. Trade recap. It's the second day of the funded for funded challenge account. The reason why I haven't recorded the first day is because I kind of was a bit too lazy, but also because it was like break even. But I have to say, it would still be kind of interesting because the conditions yesterday were kind of a bit better. But anyway, so today I took three trades on USDCHF, gold, and EURUSD. And I was putting my main focus on USDCHF, and after I got stopped out, I was going to gold. I also had like a very good setup on EURUSD, but I wasn't paying enough attention to it. So I would say let's start with the first trade I was taking for the day, and that's USDCHF. So let me take a sip of water. All right, let's go. Now, unfortunately, I can't switch it to the daily, otherwise the replay is going to disappear. I can show it afterwards. So overall, I was bearish, biased, because when we look at yesterday, we had like a very strong, recession, like, distribution to the downside, candle closure right there, in other words, market structure shift. And right there, we have a lower high. So even if this is like a very, strong price action right there, this zone right here, I still was expecting that we are getting like lower lows, because overall it was more likely, bearish bias also because it's still like, in the range where it's like in the validation of the fair value gap on the daily. So yeah, I was bearish biased. So in other words, I was only, expecting a retracement so I can go short. So let's go to the 5 minutes. I was watching price action at this point. Actually, I wanted to take a short after this sweep or surpassing this wick right there. But the thing is, this wouldn't be like a strong point of interest. Like it's like barely a strong point of interest. It's only a swing high on the 5 minutes, which is cool. But overall, with the confirmation and the entry setup, it just really doesn't make that much sense. I mean, yeah, we had here for value gap. It was validated. It was going to the downside. But I thought, okay, it's really a strong confirmation or like point of interest to enter of that. What was interesting for me was this very beautiful order block on the 5 minutes. In other words, like a sweep from this swing high. But again, I was more like just very enticed by this order block because it's like a very clean one. So I wanted to enter off the top of this order block. So price is going up, but yeah, as you can see, it was like moving very drastically to the upside. Like it was pushing very strongly. I wasn't expecting this push. And my stop loss was, a bit above this, let's say, swing high. And yeah, again, the rise here, this distribution was very strong, almost consistent. So as you can again, imagine, I got stopped out from this one. And then what happened? Open session officially opened, and I was curious what's going to happen. And I was expecting, okay, it's probably going to the upside because I'm still bearish bias, and I can imagine we will get like a typical, like a London session fake out, which means it's going to the opposite direction, which I'm typically biased for, like, or the overall trend, which would be in this case, bullish. So what's going up? So what's going up? And I kind of was expecting, okay, after the sweep of this, strong swing point, swing high, I want to re-enter. And I also have to mention, I kind of got a bit like, a bit like mentally microwaved. So I also entered actually twice, I think. And then I was like, okay, look, I wait. So it was going up, was going up. And then it was going above this one, as you can see. But this distribution was very consistent. You can see, like, it was like from the beginning a very, very consistent, strong distribution to the upside. So what's like a bit, confusing. And after this distribution, I could imagine, okay, we will get a consolidation, but perhaps after the consolidation is over, like the accumulation, it's going to go to the downside. So I was going above it. I was very close. I was a bit, changing my stop loss, but it didn't really change much because I got stopped up again, as you can see. And overall, entering of that, it's just like not very beautiful. Like there's like no clear setup at this point. I mean, it was going above it, but overall, it's really not a very clean one, as you can see. I mean, technically, we could say, okay, 50 minutes, we had a sweep from this one, which would be again as on the 1 hour, because I think it didn't close above it when we go look at it. And yeah, it did actually, in fact, not get close above it, but again, on the 5 minutes, we just really don't have very clean point of interest. And those which we had, they got disrespected, which is okay. And this is how it looks like when you said, okay, it's disrespected, and then, it's kind of getting a bit iffy, and you don't really get, like, an entry model on the lower time frame, which is okay, because as you can see, it was kind of going to the downside, but, very slow. So unfortunately, we didn't get a really clean, point of interest, like an entry setup on the low time frame. But as you can see, I was right with my confirmation overall. So with that, we can actually go to the 4 hours, so you can kind of understand how I got to that. Because also one thing besides on the daily, this farewell gap, which I believe it's still not, like over yet, that it's still kind of, distributing this farewell gap. I also saw on the 4 hour in combination with that, of course, the things I mentioned on the 1 hour, but also resistance when you kind of look at this. When we go to the 1 hour, it's also relatively clear. So we kind of have like a resistance going over there. So we know if all these high time frame confirmations combined, we have like a good confluence, but it doesn't help you that much if you don't get like an entry model. So a bit, unfortunate, but happens. Then it was a bit like, again, a bit brain fog today, also a bit like, mentally microwaved. So this also caused me in the first place to make more trades with that one, which caused like a bit a larger loss than I was calculating in. And then I was going, like my last attempt to gold. I was going to gold. There was a similar thing going on. I also actually believed we have here perhaps a resistance going on, but again, this also, leads back to the point that I was a bit microwaved. That my brain was a bit microwaved this day. So I couldn't really, see the certain things. Well, at this point, I have to say, yeah, we also have like a strong push to the downside. Um, but again, this isn't like strong enough because it actually feels like that, at this point it's a bit double biased, or in other words, there's like not enough confirmation. You don't have like a clear bias at this point. But I still tried to, get into this one. We got there at a double top, and I thought, okay, I'm going to enter off that. And then it was actually going down. It looked pretty well. I thought, okay, perhaps I'm going to be right. Well, not perhaps. I just thought, okay, this is like a bit more double biased because we have like not very solid proof confirmation at this point, which is like a very, very bad fundament to take a trade off. But still, I took it. And I was looking well at the beginning, but then, as you can see, it was going up again. I was a bit concerned, and then boom, very aggressive push to the upside, and I got stopped out very strongly. So let's get now to the EURUSD trade. And to be honest, I didn't take this trade from the beginning, but now when I reflect on this, also after I got stopped out on both positions, like on both pairs, I mean, I realized that this one actually had the best conditions amongst the other two. Like if I compare, this actually had the best conditions, and also a very clean, like overall a very clean entry model. Now I was taking, this order block, like the bottom of this order block on the 5 minutes, as my I would have taken as an entry, but then I missed it. But to be fair, overall, if I have to be honest, this is still like some good, solid confirmation, but this shouldn't be like the solely point of interest which I would enter off. It's for sure a good confirmation, but when I look afterwards, I kind of have to be honest, but still, wouldn't be particularly ashamed, but it's good to observe that and kind of, include this to the future in my future calculations. So just like, kind of being able to have like a broader view on that. So I can see, yeah, it's a good confirmation, but it's not really supposed to be like my solely point of interest or my entry reason, if you get me. So I was going to this order block, I was going down below that, and then it was going to the upside. It was actually, going pretty close to Asia highs, which would be my TP if I would have entered off here. But then it just reversed very strongly, as you can see. But the good thing is, then we get here the liquidity sweep. So this is confirmation, and this is point of interest for the entry would have been like a great trade if you ask me. Like the entry of that would have been like better. So yeah, but anyways, even if I would have ended up here regarding my stop loss, I still would have been in the trade. So again, I took maybe a lesson how I can do it better, but it's not bad how I would have acted here. I was putting my drawings. So this was like after a while I got stopped out on both, and then was going back. I actually thought, okay, it's also going maybe to the downside. Perhaps I was wrong. But then but then I saw it was going up, and then somewhere around here I was entering. I know it was a bit foolish, but I was like, you know what? Maybe it goes all the way down, but I'm pretty convinced it is going to its TP. So I'm just going to try to decrease the damage, or decrease the loss, which I took earlier. And as you can see, like literally like 10 minutes after, the alert got triggered on my phone, and I saw it's a TP. Great. So I was able to actually do some kind of damage control after being a bit unfortunate. But still, when I think about how I was looking at this at the beginning from here, regarding this swing high, it made a bit of a difference. I was able to kind of decrease this impulse which I had the past few weeks, because I think this was like the main point or the main reason which caused me to lose. Of course, which also includes with having like a messy sleeping schedule, absolutely no doubt. But in combination, but through that, I think this also kind of made me act more based off impulse instead of sober analysis and intuition. So at this point, I genuinely see like the improvement or like the development I need to be consistently profitable. And yeah, because overall, like, I mean, my analysis and being able to see like the bias and stuff like that, again, like, I would argue it's good. I was never struggling with that. It was really just like, the taking action, the right action. So I would say, or I feel like I'm recovering, but more importantly, I'm developing to a certain direction, which I wasn't at far earlier, and I think it's going to take a few more attempts, so I'm able to kind of adjust the frequency if you want. So, um, in terms of just more trading days with this awareness, and then yeah, I'm pretty positive about this. But overall, today's market condition wasn't very great, but still there were some possible trades like your USD. I mean, on USDCHF I was also right, but yeah, we barely had very clean entry models on the 5 minutes, which is okay. And also, which I forgot to say on your USD regarding the market conditions, um, the reason why bullish daily fair value gap, which hit a few days earlier, but it wasn't really. I feel like it wasn't like going for it completely. I mean, yeah, it got validated right there. It was going up, entering to this fair value gap, and was going down again. But then it failed to close above this candle on the 4 hours. So this also gave me like the confirmation to be bullish biased. And as you can see, it was going up, retracement, then up again. So overall, it was like a good analysis, a good trade, a good setup, a very good setup, a clean setup, for this kind of market conditions. So I am not frustrated or something like that overall, and I'm very excited to go into Monday. Not excited, but I just want to see the progress if I can keep up the progress in terms of um being like having like still a certain state of sobriety, also with the being more like reasonable, and also having like this, so being in the state of sobriety regarding the analysis, like does it make sense, does it make sense, or does it not make sense. This is a bit uncertain. If yes, then just try to take your hands off. I was able to keep this discipline in terms of this thinking right there, but then I kind of failed here, and more importantly I failed here even more. But again, it's okay. It's a data point, because especially with the broader view I was able to have today, and also in the progress of fixing my sleep schedule on this week, like the past 2 weeks, I think for me it's like actually a very good data point. So for me overall, it's a win. So in other words, I was able to decrease it from the overall, like overall, I will, it's like like approximately like $170-$180 loss. So I can live with that, especially with the things I could, which I just mentioned earlier. So yeah, with that being said, cheers.